Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the small town of Maplewood, nestled between sprawling fields and thick woods, a chilling stillness enveloped the air one late October evening. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie shadow over the quaint houses, their white picket fences illuminated only by the dim streetlights. It was the kind of night where whispering winds carried secrets. But tonight, those secrets would lie heavy on the hearts of the townsfolk. The local diner had closed early, an unusual occurrence for a Friday. As the last light flickered off in the windows, the proprietor, Joe Emmett, leaned against the counter, words of an impending storm stirring unease among his regulars. Outside, the streets lay empty, save for the rustling of leaves dancing at the foot of the lampposts. The rhythm of the town felt disrupted, as if nature itself sensed the disquiet that loomed ahead. It wasn't until the following morning that the uneasy peace shattered. The body of 25-year-old Melissa Grant was discovered in the woods of place. She often frequented to find solace from the pressures of life. A loner by choice, Melissa was an unassuming character, often seen in the company of a tattered book hidden behind large glasses and a gentle smile. But now she was the center of a chilling mystery. As the sun broke through the clouds, people gathered at the scene, drawn by the sirens and the growing air of dread. The news spread like wildfire, igniting whispers of who the good girl had been, and more hauntingly, what had happened to her. A sense of loss mingled with fear, a potent cocktail that threatened to consume Maplewood as they realized their lives would never be the same again. The victim, Melissa Grant, was not the figure of scandal that her tragic end might suggest. To the residents of Maplewood, she was a familiar, unremarkable presence, a quiet soul, known for her kindness more than her social acumen. With her shoulder-length brunette hair, often tucked behind her ears, and the perpetual presence of a book in her hands, she floated through life's currents, always on the periphery of social gatherings. Born and raised in Maplewood, she had lived a life shaped by the rhythms of the town. The third child in a loving, albeit overprotective family, Melissa had excelled academically, earning a place at the local community college. She aspired to become a librarian, seeing in books a world far wider than her small-town confines. Despite her introverted nature, Melissa generously volunteered time at the town's library, where the scent of aged paper lingered like a comforting embrace. But there was more to Melissa than her literary passions. Friends recalled her laughter, albeit quiet, and the kindness she extended to those around her, the elderly woman she helped carry groceries, the lost child she guided back home. However, as they shared memories, a deeper truth emerged. The world outside was often harsh, and Melissa struggled with a creeping sense of isolation. She regularly ventured into the woods. Those endless green trails became an escape, a sanctuary where she could breathe and ponder without judgment. Yet, that very haven transformed into the scene of unimaginable horror the day she was found. As police officers began piecing together her life, they unearthed fragments of her existence that hinted at hidden complexities. Was she truly the good girl everyone believed her to be? Or was there a depth to her story, an intertwining of shadows that would lead them deeper into the heart of Maplewood's darkest secrets? Questions lingered in the air like the morning fog, waiting to be unraveled. The crime scene. The sun had barely pierced the morning mist when the call went out, drawing law enforcement to the outskirts of Maplewood. The dense thicket of oak and pine stretched tall and foreboding, casting long shadows over the ground. Detective Clara Mitchell, a seasoned investigator with 12 years on the force, arrived at the scene armed with determination and an unsettling sense of dread. She knew the wooded area well. It was a place for lovers, joggers, and those seeking refuge from everyday life. Now it would forever carry the weight of tragedy. Uniformed officers cordoned off the area with yellow tape, the bold lettering stark against the lush greens. As Clara approached, she took in the scenic clearing where the underbrush had been disturbed. A pool of crimson marred the earth, a stark contrast to the earthy browns of fallen leaves. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach, the gravity of the discovery washing over her. Nearby, forensic specialists were carefully cataloging evidence. Each flash from a camera captured the microcosm of horror concealed beneath the serene facade of the woods. Melissa's body lay partially obscured by foliage, a grave marker fashioned from nature's artistry. Her jeans were torn, and her top, now dirtied, clung to her torso. The elegance of her quiet charm felt grotesque against the violence inflicted upon her. As Clara knelt beside the body, her mind raced through possibilities. A struggle? An ambush? She noted the absence of obvious defensive wounds, and the unsettling thought crept in. Was Melissa taken by someone she knew? The woods echoed a cacophony of questions that shot through the air like arrows. Who could do this? How could they silence the gentle presence that had once wandered these pathways? With her heart thumping in her chest, she ordered an extensive search of the area. This was no ordinary investigation. Clarity would come only when she pieced together Melissa's final moment. Clara knew the truth lay hidden within the shadows, and it was imperative to unearth it, not just for the victim, but for the entire community now gripped in fear. Time was of the essence, and the darkness began to reveal itself. The early investigation, with the crime scene processed and Melissa's body transported for autopsy, Detective Clara Mitchell turned her attention to the intricate web of relationships that formed the tapestry of Maplewood. The tight-knit nature of the community often stood as an impenetrable wall, but Clara was resolute. To find Melissa's killer, she needed to dismantle that wall, brick by brick. Her first stop was the local library, where a somber atmosphere had settled in the wake of the tragedy. The librarian, a wiry woman with graying hair, was visibly shaken. Clara introduced herself, her tone gentle yet firm. "I'm looking for anyone who might have seen Melissa in the days leading up to her death." With hesitant breaths, the librarian recalled seeing Melissa on Wednesday afternoon. "She was with someone, a man, I believe," she stammered, wringing her hand. "He had dark hair and a leather jacket." Clara's mind raced with possibilities as she took notes. Who was this man? Clara felt an urgent need to track down every lead, no matter how slight. She pressed on, engaging patrons and staff alike, piecing together an image of Melissa's final days. Whispers turned into leads, and leads spurred urgency. In the days that followed, Clara and her team began conducting interviews across town friends, acquaintances, and anyone who might have crossed paths with Melissa. Each conversation revealed glimmers of a life unfulfilled. While some spoke of her kindness, others hinted at darker undercurrents: jealousy from former classmates, lingering bitterness from unrequited love. One evening, Clara received a tip that led her to the local bar. a place where townsfolk gathered to lose themselves in drink and stories. The dim lighting cloaked the realities of the patrons. A bartender with weary eyes mentioned a heated argument he had witnessed between Melissa and a woman named Sophie, a woman who seemed consumed by jealousy over a long-lost romance. As Clara followed this thread, she sensed the tension in the air growing thicker. The small town that once felt so safe now pulsed with uncertainty and unanswered questions. Someone had snuffed out the light of Melissa's existence, and Clara was determined to ignite the search for the truth before the shadows closed in on everyone in Maplewood. The dead ends. As the days wore on, the investigation unfolded like a novel in which every turn of the page offered more questions than answers. Detective Clara Mitchell sat at her cluttered desk, surrounded by reports and notes, feeling as if she was chasing phantoms. The whirlwind of interviews had brought in a slew of leads, but most fizzled out faster than morning dew evaporating in the summer sun. The discord between Melissa and Sophie, as reported by the bartender, seemed like a worthwhile lead. Yet when Clara tracked down Sophie at her workplace, a local bakery, she found a young woman in tears, her trembling hands pushing dough absent-minded. Sophie insisted that while there had been an argument, it had always been overshadowed by years of friendship. "I loved her like a sister," she pleaded, her voice choked with sorrow. "We had a misunderstanding, but there's no way I'd hurt her." Clara felt a pang of sympathy but needed to dig deeper. Each interview spun a web of relational complexities, revealing hidden rivalries and jealousy that seemed trivial in the face of such a tragedy. Yet each suspect she investigated offered alibis too clean to dispute, their paths carefully placed out of reach. Attempts to track down the dark-haired man the librarian mentioned proved equally fruitless. Witnesses described him differently. Some said he wore a cap. Others recalled a distinct tattoo. Descriptions slipped through Clara's fingers like sand, each lead landing her back at square one. Some days, Clara found herself retracing her own steps, meeting again with friends of Melissa, hoping that the weight of the investigation might unearth fresh memories. She was talking to someone. A childhood friend recounted, reminiscing about casual conversations at a cafe. But she never mentioned who. The frustrations of these dead ends began to gnaw at her resolve. The ache of failure lingered in the back of her mind as nights turned into weeks. Clara knew Maplewood was a community built on trust, but the meters of suspicion were shifting. Was it possible that the very people Melissa had known and loved were keeping secrets? With every promising lead falling apart, apprehension lauded itself over hope. The chilling reality settled in unless something broke free. Melissa's case might dissolve into obscurity like so many others. In a small town, familiarity had become a shroud, concealing the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Time was slipping away, and Clara felt the pressure build. Melissa's voice needed to be heard. A break in the case. The stillness of a cold November morning enveloped Maplewood as Detective Clara Mitchell sipped her coffee, lost in thought. Late nights spent poring over case files weighed heavily on her eyelids. Just as despair threatened to take root, the phone on her desk buzzed, jolting her from her reverie. It was Officer Fields, his voice brimming with urgency. "We might have something," he said. "You need to get down to the station." Clara's heart quickened as she raced to the station, the weight of exhaustion momentarily forgotten. As she entered, Fields leaned against the desk, his expression a mix of excitement and caution. "This came in through a tip line," he explained, handing her a printed text message. A local teenager, Jacob, had come forward. He claimed to have seen someone lingering in the woods near the crime scene days before the discovery of Melissa's body. He said he thought it was suspicious, Fields continued. The guy was acting strange around the same time everyone else said they'd last seen her. Jacob described a man fitting the dim profile of the one the librarian mentioned, albeit with slightly different details that finally seemed to align: the leather jacket and a distinctive scar on his forearm. Clara felt a rush of adrenaline as they pulled up the surveillance video from a nearby gas station where the teenager said he once saw the man. As Clara and Fields pored over the footage, the grainy images flickered to life. Suddenly, Clara's breath caught as the frame shifted down. Man resembling the descriptions in the interviews stepped into view. His jacket unmistakable. They could see him gassing up his vehicle, carelessly tapping his foot to music only he could hear. The angered look on his face when a woman approached and spoke to him sent alarm bells ringing. Clara quickly jotted down the license plate and details left unspoken. With renewed vigor pulsing through her veins, Clara coordinated with patrol officers to identify and locate the man associated with the vehicle, Richard Cole, a transient who had been floating in and out of the town. Rediscovering her purpose, she felt a flicker of hope ignite. As she left the station, the weight of despair began to melt away. Life in Maplewood had become an enigma. Yet with this break, the threads of the mystery began to weave together once more. Clara knew the clock was still ticking. She had to act quickly before the opportunity slipped through their fingers like dust. There was finally a name, a face, and perhaps a pathway to justice for Melissa. She would chase this lead with tenacity. It was time to confront the shadows that had gathered all too close. The suspect. Detective Clara Mitchell's pulse quickened as she stared at the photo of Richard Cole taped to her desk. The man's cold gaze met her own through the grainy image, an unsettling reminder that the key to solving Melissa's murder lay just beyond reach. Clara's gut told her that he was more than just a man passing through. He embodied the turbulence lurking under the town's seemingly calm surface. With a plan forming in her mind, she and Officer Fields prepared to track him down. Weeks of painstaking investigation had revealed that Cole had a history of arrests for petty theft and disturbing the peace threaded through his past. His lifestyle, however, suggested a deeper darkness. Clara called for backup and set her team into motion. With every lead spoken and theory debated, they pieced together a timeline, leading them to the rundown motel on the outskirts of Maplewood, where Cole was known to stay. As they approached the motel, wrapped in the fading light of late afternoon, Clara felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. She glanced at her team, nodding for them to remain vigilant. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the heavy doors of the lobby, the smell of stale cigarettes and old carpet mingling around her. The receptionist, a weary-looking woman with tired eyes, recognized the badge immediately. "He's in room 7, she muttered under her breath, her gaze flicking toward the hallway. "Been suspicious since he got here." Clara motioned for her team to move in, hearts pounding against a backdrop of uncertainty. Outside room 7, they formed a barrier, Clara rapping gently on the door. "Richard Cole, this is Detective Mitchell. We need to speak with you." Silence stretched unbearably long before it was broken by the unmistakable sound of shuffling feet. Then the door creaked open just enough for Clara to see the strange, scruffy figure staring back. Cole's expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness, his hands fidgeting nervously around his waist, "What do you want?" he growled, a hint of fear lacing his voice. "May we come in?" Clara asked, her tone steely yet calm. Cole hesitated, then begrudgingly stepped back, allowing them access. Inside, the disarray of the room bore the mark of a man living on the edge, the air thick with tension. Clara's eyes darted around, noting the cluttered surfaces and the faint smell of alcohol. As the team searched for evidence, she turned her attention back to Cole. "I know you were in the area before Melissa died," Clara stated, locking her gaze onto his. "We have witnesses who saw you." Cole's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "I don't know what you're talking about," he snapped, attempting to brush past the claims, but Clara pressed on. Slowly, she unwrapped the web of circumstantial evidence that surrounded him, the whispers of frustration threading through her questions. But Cole remained defiant, still hiding behind half-truths and indignation. Each denial felt frustratingly rehearsed, a performance meant to deflect attention rather than reveal. Just as Clara began to feel the gravity of the deadlock close in around them, the tension was fractured by a sudden shout from Officer Fields, who had found something hidden within the Miss Melissa's ring. An unmistakable piece of jewelry that had been breathlessly described by multiple sources. Clara felt a jolt of adrenaline surge through her. She turned her focus back to Cole, who had turned ghostly pale. The weight of the evidence closing in. Where the investigation had once floundered, a momentum surged forth. Richard Cole was no longer just a suspect. He was now at the heart of a story long buried beneath the woods, and Clara was ready to bring the truth into the light. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with an air of tense anticipation, the hallowed walls echoing with the whispers of a community that had been on edge for too long. As the trial of Richard Cole began, Clara Mitchell sat at the front, her heart racing. The journey to this moment had been arduous, fraught with obstacles. Yet here they were at last. The pursuit of justice for Melissa Grant would unfold in this very room. The wooden benches were packed, friends and family of Melissa present, weary yet determined. The judge, a stern woman with an unyielding gaze, called the court to order as attorneys shuffled papers. Clara had been present since day one, committing herself to the pursuit diligently, but she felt the accruing weight of her responsibilities now, especially when it came to speaking for Melissa. The prosecution laid out its case methodically. A forensic analyst detailed the evidence uncovered in Cole's motel room, recounting the discovery of Melissa's ring. Clara listened intently, each word magnifying the fragile memories of the victim, who had been snuffed out far too soon. Witnesses took the stand, recounting interactions with Cole and their observations of his behavior leading up to Melissa's tragic end. As the defense attorney rose, an oily smirk on his face, the mood shifted. He challenged the validity of the evidence, asserting that there was no direct proof linking Cole to the crime. Coincidences abound in small towns like Maplewood, he asserted, his voice dripping with condescension. They are quick to leap to conclusions, desperate for closure. This is simply a case of misdirected blame. Clara felt a surge of frustration wash over her, but she held her composure. Questions tugged at her mind. What had happened between Cole and Melissa? But as the defense mounted its case, it began to feel like a desperate ploy to shift the narrative, painting Cole as a scapegoat pushed into an unforgiving corner. The trial progressed, and tensions escalated as emotions ran hot. Footage was shown Richard Cole's movements through town, the moments leading up to the last sighting of Melissa Walter. The judge's gavel punctuated every claim, intensifying the atmosphere as jurors exchanged furtive glances, weighing their perceptions against the chaos unfolding before them. Finally, it was Clara's turn to testify. As she stepped onto the stand, she felt the weight of every eye in the room, the pull to be Melissa's voice echoing within her. She recounted not just the evidence, but the essence of who Melissa had been, a vibrant woman with dreams, now reduced to a mere symbol of what had been lost. Tears glistened in the eyes of those who loved her, and Clara's chest tightened with an unrelenting ache. In the end, the jury retreated to deliberate. Clara could only clutch her hands together, praying for a sense of justice to come. Hours stretched into a suffocating silence. And finally, when the jurors returned, Clara's heart raced against the hush of the crowd. The foreman stood up, a mix of trepidation and resolve in his voice. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Richard Cole, guilty of the murder of Melissa Grant." Clara heard the gasps surround her, a wave of disbelief washing over the courtroom. As the gavel struck down, marking the end of a chapter, Clara glanced toward the family of Melissa, eyes glistening with relief and sorrow. While no verdict could erase the pain, it had restored a sense of peace to a shaken community. As she stepped away from the stand, a quiet resolve settled within Clara. Justice had prevailed, but the haunting memory of lost possibilities lingered. For Maplewood, and especially for Melissa, the journey was only beginning. The shadows that had once loomed now began to fade, but the light they brought with them would forever be cherished. The aftermath. As the cold winds of December began sweeping through Maplewood, the trial of Richard Cole became a distant echo. The community, though finally marked by any semblance of closure, still wrestled with the deep scars left by the tragic murder of Melissa Grant. Reflecting on the case, Detective Clara Mitchell found herself haunted yet hopeful, navigating the emotional aftermath as she slowly returned to her routine work at the police department. The once bustling streets felt quieter, as if mourning alongside those who had known Melissa. Locals spoke of her spirit in hushed tones at the diner where she had shared laughs over coffee with friends, or at the library, where her laughter had once danced among the shelves. Out of the darkness emerged an unexpected unity among the townsfolk. They came together for candlelight vigils, honoring Melissa's memory as they lit candles under the soft glow of the winter sky. Yet, for Clara, the echoes of that fateful day continued to resonate. She struggled with the weight she carried, a mixture of relief that justice had been served, while grappling with the undeniable void left behind. Each visit to her local cafe felt tinged with a bittersweet reminder of the senseless violence that had shattered their peace. But in the months after the trial, the town sought solace in the mission to create a safer environment for all, turning their grief into resilience. Clara spearheaded a community outreach program at Maplewood, dedicated to fostering open conversations around domestic violence and mental health issues. Alongside local advocates, she organized workshops and discussions, aiming to create awareness and prevent tragedies like Melissa's. As people began to gather around the table for these meetings, a profound sense of empowerment emerged. One evening, while standing up to present a community workshop, Clara found herself overwhelmed by the collective strength of those who had come. Faces, once filled with despair, lit up with determination, ready to actively participate in ensuring the safety and well-being of their loved ones. This gave her a renewed purpose that extended beyond a badge and beyond. As the snow blanketed the town, Clara realized that the journey toward healing was fraught with challenges, but it felt right to honor Melissa's memory with each step. The legacy of her life prompted change. It served as a catalyst for a conversation everyone needed to have, one filled with painful truths and shared experiences. Months blended into one another, the district attorney eventually reaching out to Clara to discuss forming a task force aimed at improving response protocols in instances of domestic violence. They wanted her insight and experience, a testament to the impact her unwavering dedication had left upon the community. In those brief moments of warmth and connection, Clara understood that the shadows had not entirely faded away. They would always linger, but together they were crafting a brighter future, creating a town where loss could catalyze growth and where silence would not shackle the voices of the victims any longer. As the candles continued to flicker in memorials for Melissa, Clara pressed forward, her heart resolute and her spirit unwavering, forever committed to ensuring that no one else would have to suffer in silence again. Reflection. As the year drew to a close, Clara Mitchell sat in her quiet office, the dim glow of her desk lamp providing a solitary illumination against the encroaching shadows of evening. Outside, the first snowfall blanketed Maplewood in a soft white hush, but inside the atmosphere crackled with reflection. Clara took a moment to soak in the memories of Melissa Grant's laughter, of the trials that journeyed through grief toward a semblance of justice, and of the community that had risen from despair, united in purpose. In moments of silence, she often replayed the faces of those she had encountered along the way. Melissa's family, their strength in the face of heartache, and the faces of the townsfolk who had supported one another through their darkest hours. But she wrestled too with the specter of loss that had overshadowed them. While the trial had marked an end to Cole's threats, the void of Melissa's absence lingered deeply within the fabric of their lives, a reminder of the fragility of existence. Clara opened a box on her desk, a collection of memento scandal stubs from vigils, photographs of community gatherings, and flyers from workshops. These tokens served as touchstones of what they had achieved together, a movement sparked by sorrow, transformed into awareness. Each item embodied a promise to remember, to educate, and to uplift. As she stared at the snowy scene outside, a sense of hope swelled within her. Melissa's story had catalyzed a wave of change, fostering voices that sought to speak out against violence and injustice. Clara understood that as time progressed, so too did the commitment to keep the conversation alive. This community would not forget. They would always rally together, ensuring that every individual was cherished and protected. With renewed determination, Clara wrote in her journal, her pen gliding across the pages. Stories need to be shared. Truths need to be spoken. For every victim whose light had dimmed too soon, Clara committed herself anew to the fight. She was ready to embrace whatever came next, fueled by the resilience of those around her, and the memory of a life that, though stolen, would never be silent.